This is just a quick video to show you a basic default startup for the console that we'd like the console to be in, and also handling with Studio Etiquette is how we'd like to leave the console for the next user as well. So focusing on the master section first, let's make sure, crucially, that our control room level with the monitors is off. That way we won't get any nasty surprises if we press play, but we are now in control of the level, and usually around 5 or 6 is a good starting point. I like to put it into cut mode as well, just in case. Secondly, as most of the times we're in the studio, we're going to be tracking. We're going to be needing the analog side of the console, so we put it into mix mode. So mix mode is engaged. We can now use all the analog channels and faders. Moving across here, make sure the fader bank is in analog focus. So this is lit blue. When it's not lit blue, it means that these are controllers for whichever application you're using, Pro Tools or Digital or Logic, and then that also needs to be aligned here on the actual door setting here, as you can see here, and that is actually on door number 1, which means that we're in Pro Tools mode. You need to set it to door number 2 if you're using Logic. So make sure that is blue because that's for the tracking stage. Coming up over here, we've got the dynamic section. Make sure your master compressor is disengaged because that could cause a shock, because this can actually increase the entire gain of the desk by 20 dB. So again, another potential shock that you could have. So make sure that's disengaged, and likewise with these two compressors here as well. Coming over here in this section here, the Q masters and all these controls need to be at 12 o'clock, and that is where they click. General situations with any analog console, if your pot as you twist it has a clickable point, and usually this is at 12 o'clock, that is where it needs to be. Coming down here, these are our main fallback A, fallback B masters. I'd have these selected, and I would default this one here to QA and this one to QB. So there generally is our master section all set up. Now coming across over to the console side with the in and output modules, we want to make sure that none of these buttons are engaged. These are the group assigns and our dynamics assigns, etc., etc. And the useful thing is that if something is assigned, you'll see it's lit up, so you can see quite clearly that we've got some assigns there. So just try and make sure those are turned off. Coming down to a console channel strip, we also need to make sure that all these are in default mode. Now in general situation, if a button is up, that is in default mode. So we don't want to see 48 volts on, we don't want to see the pad engage, either of the phase buttons in there or any of these buttons. They should all be up. Also, the knobs need to be at 12 o'clock, so you can see on this particular situation, the line trim is at 12 o'clock, so that's good. This one isn't. That should be at 12. So unfortunately, these are manual settings that you need to do across the entire console, which again is one of those reasons why it's a responsible user that leaves the console like this, all set for the next user. So you're expecting that when you come in, and the next person coming in after you is expecting you to make sure those sort of things. So reset is very, very important. So let's just go down a channel strip and look at what we need to make sure is reset, and this would be across the board for the manual controls. So the filter needs to be all the way off. All the EQ controls need to be 12 o'clock. That's their gains, their frequency select, and their Q controls. So usually 12 o'clock. Coming down here, we want the Q mix all the way off. And all the way down here, we want the pan pots to be all the way off. So we would need to do that for every single channel. Those are ones that are not automated by using the set all. However, some things are automated by the set all, which can be kind of handy. Now at the moment, you can see we have all these channels set like this, and some of them are in different settings. So instead of having to do these what were known as soft switches, so the flip switch is the soft switch here, we can actually do anything that has a soft switch appropriate to it via a set all function here. So for example, I can turn all these channels into stereo line channels just by pressing the stereo button with set all. So let's just do that. You can hear the relays clicking. Those are all in stereo mode, and in stereo mode they can only be line channels. There are no microphones available for stereo because there's only one mono mic on every of these dual channels. So let's put it back to line mode, and you can see we now have mono line channels with just the left available because that is where the microphone preamplifier is. Then coming up to the top here, you can see that these two are in line mode because they're green, and these two are in red, which means they're in mic mode. But because I've got set all here, if I was to select these and switch them to mic, they all go to mic. Switch line, they all go to line, backwards and forwards. So that's a very, very handy feature. So we want that to be in mic mode. Now going down, there are further soft switches. The insert in needs to be out. The EQ needs to be out. Coming down here, we want all the cues switched off. And notice how it does all of them at the same time, because these are switches and they are a soft function. We also want the channel output, and this is very important, we want that to be lit red. Because what this enables us to do is that when we plug a microphone into this channel, as soon as we amplify that, the signal is going to leave the channel strip post the EQ directly to the interfaces. And all we need to do is create a channel in Pro Tools and assign it to the appropriate number. So in this particular case, if we're using channel number 24, it will be input 24 left. Okay, so that will enable us to set the level of the microphone. And so that's very, very easy. And at the bottom, it means that the fader, that when we lift the fader up, as long as it's assigned to the mix, in this particular case there, notice how it does all of them at the same time. This means that we could use this just as our monitor during the tracking process that does not affect the overall level going to tape. Now another thing that we also want to do and get used to is just turning these virtual pots, because this is the output of the channel for path B, which is the right hand path of the stereo module, which is not active at this point. We don't really need it, but it will take our microphone channel and send it out also to path B's output. So we don't need that. So just turn that off, and that stops our interface looking confusing and all those sort of things, because at the end of the day we want this to be as simple as possible. So just to quickly recap, we want cut, we want off for control level because we will turn that up when we need to. We want this to be in mix mode. We want our compressors off. We want our auxiliary Q masters at 12 o'clock. We want our fallback A and fallback B assigned to QA and QB respectively. We want all our channels to be in mono line mode. We want it to be in mic mode with all the buttons up. We want the trim for the line if we're using it at 12 o'clock. We want all the EQs to be set like this except the filter, which is all the way off. We want the soft keys disengaged. Coming down here, we want the Qs all the way down and switched off. We want the channel output on so that it's red. We want to come down here, we want all the mixers on, and we want it to be inline mode. And we also want that virtual pot for path B off. So that is a general default setting for the console that would work for everybody.